Hello lovely stitchy friends, I'm Kat and I'm delighted you could stop by my channel, Catkin and Lily, where we talk all things cross stitch. So it was very much time for me to do another stitch with me, and can you believe I haven't done one yet with this gorgeous piece, my full coverage, Dragon Race into the Night. And I have been promising it for a bit, so I thought we should really get to it. Now it probably won't be the last stitch with me I do with this piece because it's going to be going for a while, but this is where we're up to. I will put a picture in of what the full piece will look like if you haven't seen it. It's a beautiful full coverage. The artwork is by Rose Catherine Kahn and it's been charted by Paine Crafts, and it is 536,350 stitches. Over 500,000 stitches. So this is a big one. So what I've got here is 4.66%. Yeah. Very nearly 25,000 stitches. 25,000 stitches is a huge amount and it's at 4.66%. So I thought we'd have a go. We'll put a few stitches in today. It's probably not going to be very many. I was very excited that I got to a dragon. I've been working, in fact I'm going to start doing a little bit up in the sky up here, and then we're going to come down and do some interesting stuff down here. I wanted to share about the sky because I know a few people have asked how do I do that, because there's a lot of it. I've done a lot already, but there's a lot more sky going out that way, so we'll just have a quick peek at that, but it's not the most interesting, so I thought I'll explain that and then we'll come and stitch some colourful bits down here. No dragon today, no dragon. So I'm going to start by rolling this back up because that's how I tend to stitch, and I've got to grab my thread from the back because I left it on the back here. So I do need to get this thread, it's got a slightly tatty end, I'm going to snip that. So we'll thread this up, put this back where it needs to be. Actually, let's put this back first and then I'm going to roll this up properly. So obviously I unrolled it to show you because, well, it's rather lovely, so you do want to see it. Right, now that's back on the front. Let's roll this up because I want to roll it fairly tightly like this so I can get a good grip of it, roll it all the way up to here. If you haven't seen me stitch before, then yes, I'm stitching in hand, all of it in hand. I've got the other side rolled in here as well. So if I show you, I'll try and show you the top section. I do have a video on how I roll my pieces. I will try and remember to pop that in the description for you. But basically both sides are rolled in and secured with little clips. These are little sewing clips. And then I've just got this resting on my leg. You can see my legs are here in my jogging bottoms. Nothing glamorous for this video, I'm afraid. And then I'm going to rest it over my leg like that. And obviously because it's really long, you can see I've basically just got it resting on me, and then underneath here is, there we go, there's the other ends of it, is out here. So I've just literally sort of got it wrapped round and underneath me and resting on the sofa next to me. I'll show you all that before I zoom in a little bit so that you can see, because I know that's part of the interest here is seeing how I stitch such a huge project in hand. Now I'll have to change this a bit when I get down to the bit underneath here because I've rolled that up. But I want it rolled up nice and close to where I'm working. And so I've got a few stitches of this left to go. And basically what I do with the sky, you can see there's several different colours in here, and it's all in sections. Which I've said I've rolled that up. You can see the different colours sort of interleaved. You get this kind of checkerboard effect. So all I do really with the sky is just work. As with pretty much everything I do, I work across, from left to right and down. So I just kind of work each section as it comes. So I've worked this colour out here, so obviously there's lots of gaps in here to fill in. And then I'll take the next colour and go and fill that in, and then the next one, and just work my way across. I have got a slightly random bit out here, which, goodness knows how that happened. I probably had some thread that I didn't want to not use, so I probably just used that. Now I will, before I zoom in, actually, what I'll do is I will show you this on Pattern Keeper, because I'm using Pattern Keeper for this. And I'll show you, because you can't see anything from this. Obviously I wouldn't normally show patterns, but you are not going to be able to see anything on here. Let's try and get that. I will have to angle this so you don't get any light on you, because on the screen. So hopefully it'll be good enough for you to be able to see that the way I work, the bit I'm going to be doing now is these green stitches in here, the L symbol. And that will just finish this little bit. So then what I do, I could either, having finished those ones, I'll just look for the next symbol across. So in this case, it's going to be this one here. So I'd probably start working some of this, but actually I might do a bit of that, or I might actually do some of this skull symbol first and then switch over to this one, because that then interleaves. And then I'd work my way over. Once I've done those, you can see there's an M symbol coming in here, so I'd start to pull that in. If I go back to the top, again, you'll see how I've worked along here. So I started with, it's not very easy to see when they're actually marked off, but I did this hourglass symbol and then moved over to the next one along. So the next one along here again would be this symbol. So from up here I'd probably work those. Then the next one further to the right hand side would be that hourglass one, so I'd probably start working that. And then as and when this little wavy symbol starts to come in, so I'd probably work some of this across here and then switch over to this one. Now one thing I might do, I might stitch this wavy one before I stitch the hourglass, purely because there are fewer stitches of it. So I tend to find with the interleaving of the stitches that this one, there's longer sections. So you can see just here, it's quite a few stitches, and there are fewer of this one. So I do often go for the one where there's fewer stitches. So in practice, I'd probably stitch that first and then come back to this one and fill those in. And then again, as I keep working out this way, I'll choose, I've got the L that I can come back to. Again, there's quite a lot of stitches of that, so I might do that one. I'd probably do that and work those ones across before, and also probably these few little ones as I'm working this way before I do L, which is the bigger amount of stitches. That might seem kind of backwards. You might think I would do the ones where there's lots of stitches first. But the reason I don't is that when you have ones like this where they're in ones and twos, when you fill them in, actually it can look more untidy filling in odd ones and twos than filling in ones like that, where there's longer sections of them. So ironically, I actually tend to do the few stitches first and then come back to the bigger stitches. But anyway, let's get back to what I was doing, if we can actually get back to it. I hope that helps a little bit, because I know it has been a little bit confusing. Not confusing. People have been a little bit well, just interested, really, I guess is the word, on how I do the sky and how I work that across. So you'll see that in here. And actually I have got some odd, I have left fairly small gaps to fill in. So you can see I have some very vague guidelines, and I don't always play by my guidelines. Honestly, it depends how I feel on the day. Right, let's get a little bit zoomed in so that hopefully you can see my stitching a bit better. Right, hopefully that's going to be good enough. Let's start actually putting in some stitches. And then I fall silent. I have just done all the explaining of that, and now it's just putting in those stitches. Now there might well be some, there'll be some noise, probably some fabric noise, as I'm moving the fabric around and pulling the thread through and what have you. Just because my microphone is probably going to pick quite a bit of that up as we go. And of course, it's going to move around quite a lot because I'm stitching in hand. So hopefully it's not going to make you feel too seasick with me joggling my fabric around. I mean, hopefully you've got some of your own stitching to do as well. Oh, I've just unthreaded my needle. That's quite unhelpful. I'll tell you a little bit more about this project in a moment as well. I do think, despite what I've said about trying to choose which stitches you do to sort of keep things relatively neat, there's no real way round it that when you're stitching all these stitches that are, you know, alternating all this sort of interleaved confetti, it can be a bit tricky to make it look super, super neat. So I guess the other thing is to not get too paranoid about it and just enjoy it. You will sometimes, well actually you might not, but I do find that at times I think, oh, this looks a little bit lumpy, it looks a bit weird, but you have to remember that you're stitching it or looking at it like really close up to it. And this close is not how you normally look at a piece of cross stitching. You look at the entirety, you don't look right up close at these stitches. So don't be too hard on yourself if it doesn't look good from, you know, a few inches away. And that goes for me as well. I can tell myself that as much as you. The other thing to remember is that it will, if you wash and press the piece at the end, it's amazing how much that will make everything look really quite nice and neat. It will definitely flatten it all out quite a bit. And then when it gets stretched, if you have it professionally framed, you've got that as well. Yeah, you'd be amazed. By the time it's all done and dusted, you won't even notice that you thought your stitches looked a little bit lumpy. Yes, you definitely notice it a bit if you look at this. There's a slight texture difference, but I mean, also this particular piece is based on artwork, and if you look at the original artwork, you can kind of get the sense of it almost has a brushstroke type feel to it anyway, and yeah, it really makes no odds. Now, I'm not being very systematic with some of these stitches. I wasn't necessarily going to do these ones right the way out over here, but I've got a bit of thread left, so I'm only going to go so far. But I thought perhaps I'd just fill a couple of these in. Well, I thought I'd fill a couple of those in, and now because I wasn't being very systematic with it, I'm not entirely convinced that I don't have one in the wrong place. Do you know what? I'm going to abandon that for a minute. I'm going to check that later because I'm not quite sure if I've put something in the wrong place or I'm probably just looking at it funny. Let's move to the other bit. I'm going to leave that hanging out there. I'm going to check that later. I suspect it's probably not even wrong. I'm just looking at it funny. I tell you what, I'm going to pause for a minute and I'll re-roll this so we can get down to this nice colourful bit and we'll come on back. Okay, we're back and I've rolled to this section here, which is where we're going to do a little bit more interesting. Now I've got my threads. The reason I've set myself up here, I'm actually in a slightly different spot than I filmed my Stitch With Me's before. I'm in my regular stitchy spot because I wanted to be right next to my threads. So I've got a trolley off to that side of me and I've got some little hooks and I've got on there 4 of these rings that have got all the colours on them and they're all in number order so that I can easily find the one I want, which in this case is 3819. So I've got 120 colours in this project, I think. So I've got 3819. I'm going to check on the back. I've also got my symbol so I know that I've got the correct one. So that's matching what I can see on Pattern Keeper. And then let's see. So I've got long threads cut here. This is far longer than I would use. That's my usual metre length. So I've then got some shorter lengths on here. These are 50 centimetre lengths. And sometimes there's even shorter ones on here as well, but yeah, there's actually, again, if I've got an even shorter bit, that usually sits on there. There it is. Actually, I'm not sure that is shorter. Oh, that's pretty marginal. Well, I'll show you what I would do if I didn't want to use that one. What I tend to do is go onto the back here, take my needle, stick it in here and pull out one strand out of there. I'll show you that again later because that one's a bit messy so you can't see it super well there, but I'm sure we'll do that one again in a bit. Let's get started with this thread. So this is 50 centimetres now and it's one strand that I'm using, and this is 25 count even weave. So I've got 2 sections. I've got a little bit over here and then a big chunk over here. So we'll start with the small section and I'm checking my Pattern Keeper to find my start point. So you've got to get your eye in on it, and I'm finding it from the front. So the first stitch I need is here. So I push my needle part way through like that, turn this over, pull it through, and then I'm going to put my thumbnail, so the middle of my thumbnail is now where I need to go to start that stitch. So now I'll pull that through, end almost buried in the stitches, and then very carefully turn it back over. And yes, I now have to re-find my spot and then pull it through. I'm checking on the back to make sure that I'm not going to pull it through all the way, and then I'm in the right spot to start stitching. So in some respect, stitching this more interesting, obviously much more confetti heavy section, or at least lots more colours in the confetti compared to the sky. It's kind of the same deal for me, really. Make sure that I've got this in a good spot so that you can see it. It's really the same process. Whatever I'm stitching, constant is work across from one side to the other and down. Now I know I've got stitching all the way over here, but you can still see here, that's because I was trying to get to the dragon. So I did go a little bit rogue because I wanted to get to the dragon. But you can see I've still got this edge here, and I'm going to work and probably sort of fill in this area here before I then carry on going that way. So it's a very, very similar process. And I've just realised we have to have an unscheduled break because my Sainsbury's delivery has arrived. I thought I was being organised today. Apparently I'm not. So let's park this up, and once more I will be back with you very shortly. And we're back. Sainsbury's delivery has all been put away. The irony is, I thought, oh, I won't film this morning because I had a coffee delivery. And then I completely forgot the Sainsbury's in the afternoon. I clearly thought coffee was more important. I'm not sure I can argue with myself, but there we go. So it's back to just filling these in. So I'm just working in rows, working from the top down and left to right, filling in the stitches as needed. So as I mentioned, this is one strand, it's all DMC colours. I'm using one strand, so I'm stitching 1 over 1 on the 25 count even weave. And even that, so obviously it's pretty small stitches, but over 500,000 of them. This is going to be a big piece when it's finished. Now I have done a big piece previously. I did Amy Stewart, The Amazing Animal Kingdom. That was 375,000 stitches. And that one actually only took me about 4 years to complete. I say only, but that's actually pretty fast going for a full coverage of that size. Whereas I'm stitching a lot more different things at the moment, and this one's bigger. So I think it could even take me 12 years to complete this. If I up my game a little bit, it's possible I might do it in 10. But yes, that is a very long-term project. Right, move over and stitch this next bit over here. I'm fine with it being a long-running project. Although I do sort of wonder if I might throw in another full coverage, because none of my other projects, I don't usually have a huge amount of WIPs, that's works in progress. I think I have 14 or 15 at the moment, so it's not actually all that many, but this is my only large full coverage project. And I have to admit, because it is such a long one, again, it seems kind of weird to say, but because it's such a long-running, huge project, I've definitely wondered about having a second one on the go. I mean, I realise the more things I have on the go, the longer it might take me to stitch this. But I also think having another one that's smaller, that would get finished quicker, might give me kind of a win along the way. I don't know, I'm in two minds on that one. Because I guess it's funny, there's always that question of process stitching versus product stitching. And I think if you're going to do something this huge, or multiple things this huge, which, you know, quite a few people have lots of full coverage on the go. And I think if you're going to do even just one of them, you have to be at least quite a lot product stitcher, because it is going to take a while. You kind of can't not be. if you're just a product stitcher, so you're stitching it, your main aim is to get that finished product, well, you are going to be waiting a while on a full coverage, even if you dedicated yourself to this, and actually if you were monogamous. I'm just going to cross my stitches off before I forget what I've done. I've already forgotten what I've done. There we go. Even if you were monogamous with something like this, it would still it'd take quite a while to stitch. So a large part of you does have to be a process stitcher, so that you just enjoy the process. And I always say I'm a process stitcher more than a product stitcher. But it's definitely not all about the process for me. I do want that finished product, and even with something like this, I do want to get it done. I don't know if I'm okay working on this and thinking that I might not finish it. Now, we never know what's around the corner, so you really can't say for sure. But yeah, I definitely, if I took on too many, I really wouldn't have a chance of actually finishing. And I think I'd find that a bit upsetting. So I do like to at least have the hope of finishing it. And eventually being able to hang it on my wall. And getting to more dragons. And like I say, I went a tiny bit rogue, perhaps off my usual schedule of working across and down, just so I could get to that little dragon, because I really did want to. Just pausing because I thought I might. Just trying to see where I am. Right, I turned myself off again. And we're back. While I figured out what I was doing, which was purely that I'd marked off a couple of stitches that I hadn't actually stitched. No mistakes, no frogging. I marked 2 more stitches than I had done and then couldn't match it up. I'm not a very good advert for the fact that I don't usually make a huge number of mistakes on my full coverage. It's not a very good advert for that today. But then I tell you what, if you want to see how hard it is, somehow, why is it so hard to count and do this when I'm filming as well? No idea. If you can hear any noises, it's lovely husband Dr. Tim moving around upstairs. No idea if that will come through. But if you can hear it, it isn't a small elephant upstairs. Yep, this is surprisingly easier to stitch when I'm not trying to talk at the same time. Don't let anyone ever tell you that women are good at multitasking. I'm sure some of them are. I'm sure some men are as well. Multitasking when it involves cross stitch. Don't know about that. Anyway, that is that section completed. Now I don't even know how long this video is going to be because I've been very stop-start, but we'll do a few more bits before I call it a day. Now, here's the thing, I've got that bit left. Now that actually is probably good enough. I don't normally keep tiny, tiny bits, but for full coverage, having something like that is actually quite useful. There would definitely be times, you know, normally that is a bit rubbish to keep. But on here, I could easily get quite a few stitches, and sometimes you do have those areas where you've only got a few stitches to do, and it's quite handy. And my rule of thumb is, if I can get it back on the floss drop, I keep it. If I'm faffing about trying to get it on and it's too short to do it easily, it goes. So that's my rule of thumb. So I'm going to mark the stitches off that we've just done. Royal we, obviously. And then I'm going to look for the next set of stitches to do. So I've definitely got some up in here, and often what I'll do is I might look for the stitches, so you can see there's one gap. There's one in here missing, there's a few in here, there's a couple up here. So what I might do, it depends on my mood, I might look for that stitch. In fact, let me show you that again. I'll bring Pattern Keeper in so that you can see how I'm choosing which bit to do on here. So there's that one stitch up here. So often I will just pick whatever is the furthest up and to that side. So I'll pick whatever's up in this corner and then work across. But that's only one stitch, and I don't feel like doing that today, to be honest. And if I come to the next one down, that's also one stitch, and I don't feel like doing that today. Some days I love filling in those little gaps. There's another one just there. I think these two over here, I've got 3 stitches, oh, and a couple over here. So I mean, at some point that would be quite satisfying to do, but I don't want it today. I've got that section, which is great, so that would fill in these gaps and start to work down here. But at this point I've got a lot of stitches over here I haven't done, so that looks like quite a good one to do. We can do a good section in here, can even get across here to do that one. And then before I get too much down here, I might want to have come and done, there's that symbol again, so I could come and do these ones down here and fill these ones in before I finish up with this. But let's go for that one and do that one for a little bit, because this chunk here looks pretty good. And obviously you don't want to spend too long deciding which colour to do, because by then you could have just done something. So it's not that you want to spend ages faffing about and choosing. A bit of rattling there while I get the next. This is on, I think. This is where we want. Oh, actually, is it? Is it? Yes. 3011. 3011. And yeah, that's the symbol I was looking at. So again, I can show you a bit better here. So this one, I've got lots of stitches to do in this one. 4,783. So I've only got 50 centimetre lengths. They've all been cut to that length that I want to use. So now what I can do is I flip it so I can see this bundle of threads. And I don't do this with longer 1 metre threads because they go really curly, but you can do it with these ones. So I'll just usually go in here until I can see, there we go, until with my needle I can pick out one strand. So I put it there. Hopefully you can see that from this bundle I've just separated one strand like that. And then I can just pull that out, and the rest of those stay completely fine. And I've got my one strand. So as I say, I don't tend to do that for most of my other projects, mainly because if I'm working in 2 strands, I'm going to work with a 1 metre length. And you start trying to do that with a 1 metre length, and for me it just goes all bunchy and horrible. I know some people do it and it does work quite well. I just get twisty curly thread, which I do not love. Now obviously as I've been doing this, I've been doing sections, and you'll see me just run the thread into start, run the thread into stop, and you might be wondering, well, do I do the same thing if I'm just doing a single stitch? So if I wanted to go and fill in that isolated stitch, one up here or any of the other ones, do I do the same, or do I have some other magic technique to deal with those isolated stitches? And yeah, I do the same thing. It is just a case of running the thread in at the back, doing one stitch, and running the thread in at the back. I don't do anything magic or different for isolated stitches. And I just wait. I kind of wait until I'm in the mood to do them. So what's kind of good about this is that if I have a day and I really just want to get some stitches and I don't want to think about it too much, I can go and do that sky up there. Because you know it's probably going to be fairly fast stitching, you're not changing colours all the time, it isn't overly complicated. That's a great one to do if I just want to knock out some stitches. Whereas what I'm doing now is great if I want something for a little bit more interest. I've still got some blocks of stitching. I've got places I can pick the thread up and do an entire 50 centimetre length. But I've probably also got some bits in there where there's odd ones and twos of stitches left. Now sometimes I'll do that kind of mixing in as I go. So I might do it, for example, when I've done this thread that I'm doing now. This thread, I've got quite a nice number of stitches that I can do with this. But then, once I've done this, I might think, oh, well, perhaps I'll just go and do an odd stitch and mix it up a bit. So I'll do a few odd stitches, and then I'll find another little block to do. Let me just mark these off. Let's not get myself in a pickle with it like I did last time. Let's check that I know what I'm doing. That's the worst, isn't it? You feel like you've got in a pickle with it, and actually you've done nothing wrong. You've either marked or not marked some stitches that you've done, but you haven't actually gone wrong. And then you spend ages trying to work out what you've done, and you haven't actually made a mistake. I mean, I guess that's a good thing. But yeah, I think we've probably all been there. But yeah, this is definitely a situation where I can whip through a few of these, and then you think, yeah, I want to fill in some of those gaps, because they start to get a bit annoying after a while. So I'll switch back and forth. And actually, very occasionally, I will say this probably doesn't happen loads. I'll be intrigued to know if any of you have this as well, or if this might just be me. Occasionally I have a day where I just get completely sucked into filling in those gaps. Filling in these little dots, these little holes that are in there, because I just get really annoyed with them, and I have a day where I just want to fill them all in. I mean, I'm probably going to create more as I go, let's be honest. But, no, wrong line. Some days I'm actually really quite happy to just fill in those little missing stitches. And it makes my brain very happy, because suddenly you go from something that just doesn't look, even these few odd ones, it doesn't really look complete. You fill them in and suddenly it's complete, and suddenly it looks so much better. I just need to be kind of in the right mood for that, to know that I'm not going to get a lot of stitches, but it's satisfying in a whole other way that I do really enjoy. Let's just see. Mark these off. I am absolutely terrible, to be honest. This is my worst nemesis when I'm doing this. Is thinking, oh, I'll just keep going, I'll keep going. I keep stitching and not marking off, because then I have to put my needle down and stop stitching to mark off the stitches. So I think, oh, it's fine, I know what I've done. I know what I've done. I'll carry on. I'll mark it all off in a minute. Mark a whole lot off, all in one go. It works to a point until it doesn't. Again, I don't think this is just a me problem. I think this is probably some of you out there that can definitely relate to that. I'm not sure I'll even be able to tell you how many stitches I've actually put in on this video whenever I decide to stop, because I had some done before I started, so I don't really know. Just checking my back, just occasionally I get a sense, it was not correct in this occasion, but I get a sense, let me just double check I haven't got a loop of thread on the back. I didn't, so it's fine. So the way I'm sort of stitching this is the way it kind of works in my brain, if this will make any sense to anybody else, is I'm pattern mapping what the stitches look like, the pixels for each square. I'm kind of glancing across to my pattern keeper and getting a sense, drop my needle. It's very visual, a sense of where the stitches go in relation to the other stitches. So it's not even so much counting. So for example, coming up here, all I know is that I want to be here because it's the diagonal from this stitch here, and I need to be diagonal from that. So I may not even count. Now I can, obviously if I want to, I could go back and count things and just be sure. So I could also say, okay, this stitch, yes, it was off the diagonal there, but I should have 4 gaps here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So I will double check, but a lot of the time I'm just sort of taking a visual representation in my brain of where the stitches go on Pattern Keeper and then mapping that onto the fabric. It's kind of hard to explain. Some of you might do this as well. little bit of fluff there. Don't want that. Now, I might go a little bit rogue in a minute because I've kind of worked myself over here. Now, there are some more stitches down here, but there's a lot of other stitches in between it. So I'm not sure I want to do that, but there are some other odd stitches in here. So I'm just going to leave that thread there. Let's mark up those stitches that I've done. And then I think what we'll do, it is a little bit out of order this, but because I've still got the thread, there are some other stitches, and actually there's some starting from up here. So I could end this thread here, come back up here and work my way down. But because they're individuals, I can probably get away with actually working some of these stitches in that direction. So now I'm kind of going upwards, which I don't normally do. I tend to kind of work downwards. But for the odd stitch and to kind of travel along, it'll be fine. And I'm still going to work downwards when I can. So I've done this one, hopped to here. I'm going to hop up to here, and then I've hopped to this one, but I'm still going to go downwards for these three. So the three that I'm stitching in a little column here, instead of starting at the bottom, I could have stitched these three from here. I could have gone up this way, but I don't really want to stitch up, so I've just hopped here, and I'll do the three down this way. So I'm not averse to kind of breaking my own rules, I guess. Just to use the thread and not worry about ending it and restarting it. So now I'm just hopping back upwards again. Again, I'll just mark those off. And then so every section I've got two here again on top of each other. And it isn't very far to go, so I'll do the top one first. And then the one underneath it. So although I'm kind of meandering across in a slightly upwards direction, so I'm keeping my left to right, I am kind of meandering upwards on this one. But where I've got two like that, I will still do the top one first. Right. And now there is another little chunk just over here, but I am going to go, I'm going to carry on going upwards. Definitely, yeah. So this one I'm mapping where this is because I can see, don't know how well you'll be able to see, but there's three green stitches here that I can see on my pattern keeper, and I can see I want to be on the diagonal of that one. And I should be, again, it's on the diagonal of these three, it's diagonally up from this green one, and there's two brown ones here. So I'm just sort of looking for that colour, looking for that gap. And we'll go in there. And then there's one up here. So this is just a couple of these little gaps that are filled in up here. At this point, filling in odd ones like this, again, I'm just sort of looking for where the gap is, where the holes are. In relation to everything else. I'm not going to specifically count them. Right, so that's those ones filled in. And again, to end it, I've just run the thread under the back, a few stitches, and then trim it off nice and close. And obviously I've used to the end of my thread here. I'm not going to keep that. And you can see by now as well, you can see how fluffy that end's got, even on 50 centimetres, because it's quite tight. As you're going through the holes here, the thread will rub a lot on the other threads and the fabric. So you might well find these kind of fluffy ends, which is fine because I'm not going to use that. And if I did, I had a slightly longer piece with a fluffy end, I can just trim that off. Okay, now then, let's see, we've got a few in there. I'll tell you what we'll do to finish with. Let's do the one where there are only a couple of stitches. That divide symbol that we looked at earlier, which is number 16. There's only a couple of little fill-ins, so we'll do those. Now again, I don't have a short piece on here, so it's going to be a whole piece of thread to use. So again, just grabbing that one strand, pulling that out. And we'll do the little fill-ins because it'll be fun. You can see how it'll be fun, she says. How many people have ever gone, oh, we'll do these little fill-ins, it'll be fun. Yeah, okay. I guess maybe my definition of fun needs adjusting, but you'll see what I mean because I've got a couple of little fill-ins here. And I'm hoping you'll be able to see the difference that it makes. Let's see if we're in the right spot. Yeah, that looks fine. Let me just... Just checking something on there. Okay. Now this is how I make sure that I don't pull this. If I start pulling like this, it's really easy to pull it all the way through. So I actually kind of hold on to it in my fingers here as I'm pulling it through. It just means I can get it nice and tucked under without pulling it all the way through. And then say, just watch it on the back, make sure that it's secure. And we'll do our 3 stitches. Now, as I said, I can't actually believe that this is the first time I've brought Dragon Race out for a stitch with me. I'm pretty sure I thought I'd done it before. I definitely haven't. I did check. This is definitely the first time we've seen it. So I think it can come and do some more stitch with me's. Oh, hold that thought. So I need to go from the stitch I've done up here to down here, which we haven't seen this so much today. I've got to go from here to here. It's only about 1 centimetre. It's not actually very far, but I'm still going to catch that down. I'm just going to run my thread under a few stitches. Just avoids any dangliness on the back that could get caught. I'm going to be working with this for a long time, so I do not want really dangly long threads along the back. Now the other stitches that I need to do are over here. I don't think I'm going to run my thread. Let's see how far that is. I'd have to be super lazy to be doing this, to be honest. I'm not going to say I never have, but it's got to go all the way from here to here. I could. If I was feeling super lazy, I could run it all the way over, catch it down under threads all the way along. But I'll behave myself and we'll restart it for the 2 stitches over here. So what I was going to say was, before I said hold that thought, let me know if you've got any questions, anything you want to see me working on, either on this piece or anything else. But if there's anything else with the full coverage that you want me to talk about or show that I haven't done today, because as I say, this was the first time this piece has been out on a Stitch With Me, so I just thought I'd sort of cover a few things that just came to mind as I've been stitching. But let me know specifically what you'd like to see, or what I've talked about that didn't entirely make sense and that maybe I can, circle back round to. Anything like that, please do leave your thoughts in the comments and let me know, so that I can hopefully not wait another 3 months before I come and do another Stitch With Me. But yeah, hopefully I can then target it at any of the questions that you have specifically. Because that would definitely, it'll give me something to chat about and hopefully give you guys some good information. So there's the little bit I'm going to guess. I tell you what, I will mark those off before I forget. That whole 5 stitches. I'm going to guess, well, we've done at least 100 stitches, I think, in there today. Because I'm now on 197 for the day, and I'd definitely done a little bit beforehand. But yeah, pretty sure we've put in at least 100 odd stitches on there. And that's just taken us over 250,000, haha, that would be good. 25,000, yeah, 25,000 stitches. That's a lot. That's a lot. And hopefully you can now see, or actually, as the case may be, not see, where that's now all filled in with those little gaps we did. It's looking much better apart from this one over here and this one in here. I might have to come and put that one in now because it's just going to bug me. Not now, but it is looking lovely. So there it is, one dragon, lots more tree and sky to go. Let me know what you thought of this. Let me know what you want to see more of this one or any of my other whips. If you've watched my floss tubes and you've seen other whips and you'd like me to do a Stitch With Me with those, please let me know. Drop your questions there for me so that I can answer those and, well, hopefully answer those in another Stitch With Me. I hope you got some of your own stitching done while I've been working away. And of course, if you've enjoyed this and you're not already subscribed to the channel, then please consider doing so, because there should be more Stitch With Me's in future. I've got lots of tip and tutorial videos, and I've got my regular floss tubes every couple of weeks with all of my stitchy updates with all my projects. So there's always loads going on here. It would be delightful to have you as a subscriber so you won't miss a single stitch. I hope I'll see you again soon. Until then, happy stitching and bye for now.